Where was your family when they retired? Yes, we've gone from changing careers yesterday to talking about being retired today. This is one of those milestones that back in the day people kind of looked forward to, maybe not. Some people were looking forward to it, some weren't, because and the reason some people didn't look forward to retirement was, one, because it was a loss of income and main income, and number two, they really enjoyed what they were doing. Somebody asked me when I'm going to retire, and I said when I can no longer read the documents. I love genealogy. I love doing the research. I don't have plans on retiring anytime soon. As long as I'm still able to research and keep my cognitive thoughts going and thinking of different ways to get around those brick walls, and help people discover their family trees, discover their stories, I'm just going to keep going. Because it's a flexible timetable. I can work when I want to work. Oh, hang on, I think I should take that one down. Sorry, I just had a piece of post-it that I'd done. And so I'm one of those people that will just keep going until I no longer enjoy it anymore. But retirement is one of life's biggest turning points. And in New Zealand, when we retire cattle, cows, bulls, when we retire them, they get put out into the pasture until they die. That's it. They just get to graze on the things. And I'm like thinking, retirement's a little more than just being put out to pasture. You're now a free timer. You now have the freedom of time to do what you want to do when you want to do it. And if you have taken care of your health, you're going to get a lot more out of your free time between when you can finish your work until you take the dirt nap. You're going to get a lot more out of that time as long as you have your health. So take care of your bodies, look after yourselves. Your body, you only get one body. So keep it in the prime optimal health that you possibly can, so you get to enjoy more out of your free time, your retirement. After decades of alarms, schedules, deadlines, commute, customers, meetings, uniforms, or simply knowing where you needed to be every morning, suddenly life looked very different. For some people, retirement was something they had been counting down to for years because they hated the job they were in. For others, leaving a career they loved brought mixed emotions and the question, what do I do now? Think about people in your family who retired. What did they do for a living? How many years did they worked? Did they stay with one employer for most of their career? Or did their working life take them to several different directions? Was there a retirement party, a special gift, a gold watch, a speech, or perhaps just one final walk out the door at the end of the day? Then came the first morning when they didn't have to go to work. What did they do? What did they do with all the newfound freedom? Perhaps they traveled, spent more time with grandchildren, worked on the garden, took up a hobby, volunteered, joined a club, or finally tackled all those projects they had been putting off. Some people discovered that retirement wasn't about slowing down at all. It was simply gave them the freedom to decide how they wanted to spend their days. Can you imagine that you go to bed at night after you've walked out of the office for the final time or walked out of your place of employment for the final time, and you don't have to set the alarm clock? How cool is that? You'd probably still automatically wake up at the same time every morning, but now you have the option, do I get up or do I just laze in bed for a little while? You have that option. You have that option of freedom. Retirement can also reveal a fascinating part of somebody's personality. After spending years of being known by their profession, they had an opportunity to rediscover who they were away from the job. The accountant might have become an artist. The teacher might have traveled the world. The factory worker might have discovered a passion for woodworking. The business owner might have finally had time to go fishing on Tuesday mornings simply because they could. That is what I love about free times. You now have the freedom of time to do what you want to do when you want to do it with no constraints. You're not tied to a work. You're not tied to the office. You don't have to get up at a certain time. You don't have to go to bed at a certain time in order to get up then. You don't have to report in at work anymore. You now have the freedom of time. You want to go fishing on a Tuesday morning, then go fishing. If you're here in New Zealand and you do kite fishing and you're on the lower half of the North Island and close to Hamatangi Beach, if that easterly wind is blowing, you're out there kite fishing instead of looking out the window going, oh, I'd love to be on the beach kite fishing. Now you can do it. Now you can do it. You want to hop in the car and go for a day trip up to, the nearest another city or something? You've got the freedom to now do that. For family historians, retirement stories give us another glimpse into the everyday lives of people on our family tree. We often document where someone worked and what occupation appeared on the census or certificate, but don't always ask what happened when their working years ended. What did they look forward to? What did they miss? What dreams had they been saving for a one day or a someday? You're challenged to, and there are some great retirement stories out there. There are people who couldn't wait for retirement and literally had we're going on a cruise. I only know this because I booked it. He said, I'm retiring on this day. I want to be on a cruise ship the next day. I went, okay, let's do this. He was so glad to he wanted to kick off his retirement with a 14-night cruise. Him and his wife were going on a 14-night cruise the day after his retirement because they had a big party. He'd been with this company for a lot of years. They had a big party for him. He went home that evening. They packed their bags. They got on the plane they went down to the port the next day because they actually happened to live in a port where the ship was departing from. Went down to the port the next day, got on a ship and went for a 14-day, I think it was, no, they went through the Panama Canal. They did a 14-day through the Panama Canal, left out of Fort Lauderdale, arrived in Los Angeles, and then they were sort of like, well, do we go home now? What do we do? What do we do after the cruise? And then they're sort of like, I kid you not. They then turned around while on the ship and booked a cruise out of Vancouver across to Alaska, to go and see Anchorage, to go to Anchorage. They wanted to do an Alaskan cruise after that, and it happened to be that right time of the year. So they got into LA, went to LAX, took a plane up to Vancouver, got off that, had a couple of days in Vancouver, and then got on a ship that went from Vancouver across to Seaward. They then took the train from Seaward into Anchorage. They had a wonderful time in Anchorage. They just had 3 days there. They did some day trips down they did a trip down the Kodiak Peninsula. Then they went back to Anchorage and took a train trip that went up through Denali National Park. Actually, no, I think they flew into Fairbanks. They flew into Fairbanks and then brought their way down to Anchorage, went back to Seaward, got on a ship, went back to Vancouver on the ship, got off that, got on a train, got on the, what's the name of that train? Got on the train. There was a train trip that went up through, up into the mountains and Lake Louise and all of that, and ended in Banff. And then they went across to Calgary, and they were there for the beginning of the Stampede, I think it was. Yeah, they were literally making this trip up as they went along. They just happened to arrive there and the Stampede was on. They're like, this is great. And then I don't remember where they went after that, but they eventually ended up home like about 2 months later. They did this fabulous trip, and that was the day after his retirement is when they left. And then they came home like 2 months later, and they kept the family updated on what they were doing. Oh, you were on this cruise. We're thinking we might go do this. And then they come back and say, yep, we're going to do this. This is our plans now. And this couple had a blast. He retired at the age of 59 is when he retired. And the first thing he did to kick off his retirement, they went for a 2-month trip. And the only thing they booked to start with was that first cruise through the Panama Canal. And then they were on the ship. So they booked with their cruise line for future cruises and happened to book that one, which I got the credit for, which was nice. And then when they got off the ship, we put them onto the train and they did this big train trip. They got into Calgary. It happened to be Stampede, and they got to do that. And it was just wild, this trip that they did. And then they got home and decided to renovate the house because they now had the freedom to do that. And then they decided, should we renovate or should we just buy a new house? And then they ended up building their new house. They were going to renovate until they saw the cost of it. They figured we might as well just build what we want. So that's what they did. They moved out of their house that they'd been in for like 30, 40 years or whatever it was. About 30 years, I think it was. And the house their children had grown up in, and built themselves a brand new house, all single level, laid out exactly how they wanted it, had everything in there that they wanted on a good sized piece of land for it too, so they could have the family come over and have the family day picnics and that sort of stuff at their place. And they finished that and then decided to, what should we do? I'm not sure. Let's just think about it for a bit. They had this list and they kind of just started crossing things off and having a great time with it. So there are some wild things that you can do out there. There are some people who are a little more sensitive, not sensitive, that that consider themselves to be a little more sensible in the fact that they're not going to get up and go running around and da-da-da-da. But this couple, day after retirement, they went off on a 2-month trip and made it up as they went along. I can't remember where they went after Calgary. I think they might have taken the train across to like Toronto or Quebec, somewhere over there. And then did they take a cruise from Quebec? No. Where'd they go after that? I think they took the train across to the east coast of Canada. And then from there, I don't remember where they somehow ended up back at home, back down in Fort Lauderdale. Somehow. I don't remember how, but they had a blast. They had a good 2-month blast. So you can do things wild like that if you want to, or you can just decide to relax at home for a little bit. You don't have to do this, that, the other thing. But to them, it was they came home from this 2-month trip, and now they could go on and do what they wanted to do, and they had the freedom of time to do it. That's what they loved the most. And they got down there and they decided to build a place. Built their next home, and that was it. And then they did go and do some more tripping around as well. They went to different places, and they'd go off and they'd have the first part booked, like it might have been on a cruise or a land tour, and then they would add on to it at the end of it, or decide, oh, let's go do this, let's go do that, and they'd go wandering for a couple of months and come home again. It was crazy, I tell you. So there's different things that different people will treat retirement in different ways. And his thing was, we might as well do it all now while we can, because our health could turn to the fact that where we can't walk or we have mobility issues. So let's do it now while we can. That was their thing. And they went off and did it. So ask a family member, today's challenge is ask a family member about their retirement or about someone in the family they remember retiring. When did they retire? What work did they leave behind? How did they celebrate? What did they do during those first few months of freedom? And did retirement turn out the way they expected? Most importantly, ask them what they loved most about the new chapter of their life. Retirement isn't simply the end of a career. It is the beginning of an entirely new collection of family stories. Let us know in the comments below about some of the stories that you uncover. Go out, have a super fantastic sparkling day, and we'll catch you back here at some point tomorrow. It's Sunday here tomorrow, which means I will be going to church and spending the afternoon with my mum and dad. So it'll probably be close to 4 p.m. my time, which will be 9 p.m. Pacific time, somewhere around there. Okay, so go out.